Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go!
I'm 14 years old and I've lived in the Netherlands my whole life. My mom is Dutch, pale skin with blonde hair and blue eyes like most of her family. My dad is South African though, so I got his darker skin and curly hair. I stand out at family gatherings on my mom's side, but it never really bothered me until this Christmas. We were all at my grandparents' house for the holidays. It was me, my parents, a few aunts and uncles, my cousins, and my grandparents. My older brother decided to skip it this year to spend Christmas with his girlfriend and friends instead. Lucky him. My mom's family has this weird tradition where we open presents in reverse age order, so oldest to youngest. I sat there watching my cousins open their gifts first. My cousin who loves art got this massive art kit with a new sketchbook and all these expensive supplies. My other cousin got a Coach purse she'd been wanting. Everyone was getting thoughtful gifts related to their hobbies or things they actually wanted. Then it was finally my turn. I noticed right away that my present was way smaller than everyone else's, but I tried not to think about it. Size doesn't matter, right? It's the thought that counts. I ripped through the wrapping paper and just stared at what was inside. Deodorant. A single stick of Dove deodorant. I looked up at my grandparents, completely confused. I needed an explanation because this had to be some kind of joke. My grandma just shrugged like it was nothing and told me I was part in word and could use the hygiene. The room went silent. My dad got up immediately and walked out. I could see he was hurt too. This wasn't just about me, this was about him. My cousin started defending me right away, telling my grandparents that was completely out of line. My aunts and uncles didn't say anything, but I could see the disgust on their faces. They knew it was wrong. But my mom just told everyone to calm down and said my grandparents were allowed to have their opinions. I couldn't believe she was defending them. These were her parents, sure, but what they said was racist. There was no opinion about it. It was just plain wrong. The rest of Christmas was awful. My dad barely spoke to anyone. I spent most of the time in another room trying not to cry. My cousins kept checking on me, which was nice, but it didn't change what happened. The week between Christmas and New Year dragged on. I kept thinking about what my grandparents said, about how my mom didn't stand up for me or my dad, about that stupid deodorant sitting in the trash where I threw it. Then I got an idea. A petty, satisfying idea. On December 31st, we were back at my grandparents' house to celebrate New Year together. My mom insisted we go despite everything. She said we needed to move past it and be a family. I agreed to go, but I had my own plans. About 5 minutes before midnight, I pulled out a small wrapped gift from my bag and told them I got them both something to start the new year off well. My grandparents looked surprised but pleased. They probably thought I was being the bigger person or whatever. They opened it together. It was spices. One of those mini spice variety packs you can get at any store. My grandpa looked confused and asked why I would give them spices. I told them it was because they needed to spice their food better and that white people don't know how to season properly. My grandma's face turned red, and she told me to stop stereotyping white people like that. She insisted they spiced their food just fine. I reminded them that they gave me deodorant because they thought all N-words like me have poor hygiene. The silence was beautiful. My grandparents just stared at me with their mouths open. My cousins were trying not to laugh. Even some of my aunts and uncles were smiling. My grandpa said that was completely different. I asked how. I pointed out that they stereotyped me based on my race, and I stereotyped them based on theirs. I asked what the difference was. My grandma said I was being disrespectful. I agreed and said they were too. At Christmas, I asked if they remembered. My dad was watching from across the room with this proud look on his face. My mom looked mortified, but I didn't care anymore. My grandpa said this was unacceptable behavior from a child. I asked if giving your granddaughter deodorant while calling her a racial slur was acceptable behavior from grandparents. They didn't have an answer for that. They just sat there fuming while everyone else pretended to be interested in other things. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. When midnight hit and everyone started celebrating the new year, my grandparents barely acknowledged anyone. They were so upset they could hardly function. My grandma kept muttering about disrespect and how kids these days have no manners. My dad came over and put his arm around me. He told me he was proud of me. I thanked him and said I couldn't let them get away with it. He agreed and said I shouldn't have to. He added that my mother should have said something. We both looked over at my mom, who was trying to smooth things over with her parents. She kept looking at us nervously. My cousins came over after and told me that was the best thing they'd ever seen. They said my grandparents had made comments about other people before, but no one ever called them out on it. They said it was about time someone did. We left pretty early that night. My grandparents barely said goodbye to us. My mom was quiet the whole ride home, and I could tell she wanted to say something but didn't know how. When we got home, she finally spoke and said what I did was inappropriate. My dad immediately responded that what her parents did was racist. My mom tried to excuse it by saying they were from a different generation. I cut her off and said that wasn't an excuse. I told her she should have defended us. She didn't have anything to say to that. She just went to her room. I work in logistics and shipping, mostly behind a computer dealing with invoices and scheduling. The pay is fair and my co-workers in my department are cool. We grab lunch sometimes and help each other out when things get busy. I've always kept to myself for the most part. I'm not antisocial or anything. I just don't see the point in forcing friendships with people I don't actually work with. There's this woman who works in accounting on the other side of the building. I see her in the hallway sometimes and will nod or say good morning. That's about it. I wouldn't even remember her name if it wasn't for what happened last week. So one morning, this older woman from Human Resources came around to everyone's desks. She's one of those people who's always organizing potlucks and birthday parties and trying to get everyone to bond. I've always found it a bit much, but she means well, I guess. She stopped at my desk while I was in the middle of reviewing a shipment order. She told me that everyone was chipping in for a birthday gift for the woman in accounting. She mentioned that her birthday was coming up next Friday. I looked up from my screen and nodded but didn't really commit to anything. I figured if I didn't respond, she'd move on. She did, and I went back to work. Later that afternoon, around 3 o'clock, she came back. This time she had a little notebook in her hand with names and dollar amounts written down. She asked if I was in. She explained that everyone was doing $20 each for a gift card, and they were ordering a cake from that bakery downtown. I told her I was going to pass on this one. Her face changed immediately. She looked genuinely shocked, like I just told her I kick puppies for fun. She said it was just $20. I explained that I knew that. I told her it wasn't about the money. I said I just didn't really know her. I mentioned that we'd maybe said hi a couple times, but that was it. I added that I don't usually do these group gift things unless it's for someone I actually work with. She stared at me for a second like she was waiting for me to change my mind. She said, "Okay then." She walked away, but I could tell she wasn't happy. The energy in the office shifted after that. It was subtle at first. A couple people who normally chat with me in the break room suddenly had somewhere else to be. One guy from IT, who I sometimes talk sports with, barely looked at me when I said hi. I noticed people whispering when I walked past their desks. Then on Thursday, I was heating up my lunch in the microwave when two co-workers walked in. One of them saw me and nudged the other. He said, "Oh hey, it's that guy." The other one smirked and asked what guy. He explained that I was the guy who couldn't spare $20 for a co-worker's birthday. They both laughed and walked out. I just stood there staring at my sad reheated pasta, feeling like I'd been branded with some scarlet letter. I started second-guessing myself. Was I being unreasonable? Was I the jerk here? That same day, I overheard two women from sales talking by the water cooler. One of them said she heard I refused to contribute. The other one said that was pretty cold considering everyone else pitched in. They didn't even lower their voices when I walked by. Friday rolled around and they had a little birthday party in the conference room around 2:30. I stayed at my desk. I could hear the laughter and the singing from down the hall. I felt weird about it, but I also felt like showing up would be even weirder given the situation. Around 3 o'clock, someone from accounting walked past my desk carrying a slice of cake. She didn't offer me any. The following Monday, the woman from Human Resources sent out an office-wide email thanking everyone who contributed to the birthday gift. She listed all the names. Mine was obviously not on it. I got a few side looks throughout the day. One woman from reception came up to my desk and asked why I didn't participate. I explained the same thing I told the organizer. She just shook her head and said it seemed harsh. Later, I noticed I wasn't being included in the usual group lunch plans anymore. My co-workers would make plans right in front of me and just not invite me. By Wednesday, I was fed up. I decided to talk to my manager about it. He's a straightforward guy and we've always had a good working relationship. I asked if I could run something by him. He said sure and asked what was up. I explained the whole situation. I told him about the gift collection, my decision to pass, and how people had been treating me since. He listened without interrupting. He asked if anyone ever told me that participating in these things was mandatory. I said no. He told me that I didn't do anything wrong. He explained that if people want to pool money for gifts, that's fine, but it's completely voluntary. He said I wasn't required to participate in anything outside my job description. He also mentioned that he'd seen this happen before at other companies. He said people sometimes forget that not everyone has the same relationship with co-workers. That made me feel better, but it didn't solve the social fallout. People were still treating me differently. The woman from Human Resources wouldn't even make eye contact with me in the hallway. I started eating lunch at my desk instead of the break room. Then something interesting happened. About a week and a half after the birthday incident, the same woman started going around asking for contributions again. This time it was for someone in the marketing department. $30 each for a baby shower gift. I watched as she made her rounds. This time 3 people said no. One of them was a guy from IT who had called me that guy in the break room. Another was a woman from sales who always seemed tight on money. The third was someone from facilities who I'd never really talked to. Suddenly, it wasn't just me anymore. The woman from Human Resources looked frustrated. She tried to convince each person to reconsider, but they all stood their ground. The guy from IT told her he had bills to pay and couldn't keep shelling out money for people he didn't know. The woman from sales said she was saving for a vacation and couldn't afford it. The facilities guy just said no thanks and went back to work. She went back to her desk and I could see her typing furiously. About an hour later, an email went out from upper management. It clarified that all office collections for gifts, parties, and celebrations were strictly voluntary and that no employee should feel pressured to participate. It also reminded everyone that workplace professionalism should be maintained regardless of personal choices about voluntary activities. The email specifically mentioned that exclusion or negative treatment based on participation was unacceptable. The tone in the office shifted again. The cold shoulders stopped. People went back to being normal. The guy from IT even apologized to me in passing. He said he was just joking around and didn't mean anything by it. He admitted he felt the same way I did, but didn't want to be the first one to say no. The woman from sales came up to me at lunch and thanked me. She said she'd been struggling financially and felt pressured to keep contributing to these collections. She said my refusal made her feel okay about saying no herself. Even the woman from Human Resources eventually came around. She stopped by my desk about a week later and apologized for putting me on the spot. She said she understood now that not everyone sees workplace relationships the same way. She admitted she got carried away trying to make the office feel like a family. I told her I appreciated that and that there were no hard feelings. Things slowly went back to normal over the next few weeks. I still don't participate in gift collections for people I don't know, but now other people feel comfortable doing the same. My husband and I have 3 kids, ages 8, 6, and 4. We live in a neighborhood where everyone knows everyone, and the kids play outside all the time. It's one of those streets where you can still let your children ride their bikes and play hopscotch without worrying too much. I grew up in a big family, and there were always those relatives you only saw at weddings or funerals. My aunt was one of them. She lived about an hour away and we barely had any relationship with her. She was my dad's sister. but they weren't close either. She was the type who always had an opinion about everything and thought family meant she could do whatever she wanted without facing any problems. Over the years, she made comments about how we had too many kids and how selfish it was not to think about those who couldn't have any. She'd even suggested once at a Christmas dinner that we should consider giving one up for adoption so another family member could raise them. Everyone had laughed it off as a bad joke, but I remember feeling uncomfortable about it. I always brushed it off as her being weird and inappropriate. My sister lived 2 states away with her husband. They'd been trying to have kids for years with no luck. They'd gone through multiple rounds of treatment, spent thousands of dollars, and dealt with heartbreak after heartbreak. It was devastating to watch, and I did everything I could to support her. We talked on the phone regularly, and I'd send her pictures of my kids to cheer her up, though I always worried it might hurt more than help. She always said she loved seeing them grow up, even from a distance. She never once made me feel guilty for having kids when she couldn't. She was genuinely happy for me. When it happened, it was a Saturday afternoon in late spring. The weather was perfect, and all 3 kids were outside playing. I was inside folding laundry and keeping an eye on them through the window every few minutes, like I always did. My 8-year-old was teaching the younger ones how to draw with sidewalk chalk, and they were having a blast. It was around 2:30 in the afternoon. I went to switch the laundry over, and when I came back to check on them, maybe 5 minutes later, I only saw 2 kids. My heart dropped. I ran outside calling for my 6-year-old. My oldest looked up at me confused and said she didn't know where her sister went, that she was just there a second ago. My 4-year-old started crying because I was panicking. I started running up and down the street, knocking on neighbors' doors, screaming my daughter's name. One neighbor said they saw a car pull up around 2:35, but they didn't think anything of it since the kids were playing. They said it was a dark sedan, but they couldn't remember the make or model. Nobody got a good look at who was driving. Another neighbor offered to help search and started walking the other direction, calling my daughter's name. I was about to call 911 when my phone rang. It was around 2:45. It was a number I didn't recognize, but I answered immediately. The voice on the other end was my aunt. She told me she had my daughter. My blood ran cold. For a second, I couldn't even process what she was saying. I asked her what she meant, where my daughter was, and what she was talking about. She told me to relax, that my daughter was fine, that she'd picked her up from our street and she was safe with her. I asked if she was insane and demanded she bring her back right now. She refused and said she wasn't bringing her back. She said she was taking her to my sister because my sister couldn't have kids and I had 3, so it was only fair to share since we were family after all. She said my sister deserved to be a mother and that I was being greedy keeping all 3 kids to myself. She said she'd already driven about 30 minutes away and was heading to my sister's place. This woman had just admitted to kidnapping my daughter like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. I told her she kidnapped my child, that this wasn't sharing but a felony, and to bring her back now or I was calling the police. She said I was being dramatic and that my sister needed this more than I did. She said I'd still have 2 kids and to stop being selfish. She told me my daughter would have a better life with my sister anyway, since she had more money and could give her more attention. I hung up and immediately dialed 911, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. I told them everything, gave them her information, her license plate number that I remembered from a family gathering months ago, and they said they'd send officers right away. They told me to stay calm and that they were putting out an alert for her vehicle. Then I called my sister. She answered on the second ring. I asked if our aunt had contacted her. She said yes, that she'd just called about 10 minutes ago and said she was bringing her a surprise, then asked what was going on. I told her that our aunt took my daughter. I explained she'd kidnapped her from our street and said she was giving her to my sister because she couldn't have kids. My sister was horrified. She kept saying, "Oh my God," and that she was so sorry. She asked if I was serious, if this was really happening. She promised she'd call our aunt right away and get my daughter back to me. She swore she had no idea and would never agree to something like this. She said she was going to drive toward where our aunt said she was and intercept her My sister called our aunt and apparently lost it on her. She told her she was bringing my daughter back immediately or she'd call the cops herself. She told our aunt that what she did was kidnapping and that she was sick for thinking this was acceptable. My sister drove straight to where our aunt was, which was apparently at a gas station about halfway to her place, took my daughter, and drove her home to me. The whole time, our aunt kept trying to convince my sister that this was the right thing to do. She kept saying that my sister would thank her later, that she was doing her a favor. My sister told me later that our aunt seemed genuinely confused about why everyone was so upset. When they pulled up 3 hours later, around 6 in the evening, I ran out and grabbed my little girl, holding her so tight. She was confused and scared but physically fine. She'd been crying and asking for me the whole time. She told me our aunt said they were going on a special trip and that she'd see me later. My daughter said she kept asking to go home, but our aunt wouldn't listen. My sister was crying. She apologized over and over, saying she would never want this. She begged me not to call the cops, saying our aunt was clearly not well and that we should just handle this privately as a family. She said she was worried about what a criminal record would do to our aunt's life. I understood where my sister was coming from. She was mortified and didn't want more drama. She felt guilty even though none of this was her fault. But I couldn't let it go. This woman had stolen my child. What if my sister hadn't been a good person? What if she'd decided to keep her? What if our aunt had hurt her while driving? What if she'd gotten into an accident with my daughter in the car? I told my sister I'd already called the police and that I was sorry, but I couldn't let this go. I explained she'd committed a crime and needed to face the results of her actions. My sister nodded, tears streaming down her face. She said she understood and that she was just so sorry this happened. She hugged me and my daughter before leaving. The police had already been looking for my aunt based on my initial report. They arrested her that evening when she drove back home. She acted shocked and kept saying she was just trying to help family, that I was being ungrateful and cruel. She kept insisting that what she did was a good deed. She legitimately could not understand why what she did was wrong. She told the officers that she was helping both her nieces and that I should be thanking her. She was charged with kidnapping and held on a $50,000 bond. My dad tried to bail her out, but I begged him not to. He eventually agreed that what she did was too serious to ignore. The court case was a nightmare, and other family members tried to pressure me to drop the charges. They said I was tearing the family apart over a misunderstanding. They said she was family and that family forgives. Some of them stopped talking to me entirely, but there was no misunderstanding. She took my child without permission and planned to give her away like she was a piece of property. She showed no remorse during the trial and kept insisting she did nothing wrong. The prosecutor said it was one of the strangest cases he'd seen because she genuinely believed she was helping. My aunt ended up with a conviction and served 18 months. She's out now but has a restraining order against her. She's not allowed within 500 feet of me or my children. My sister and I are closer than ever, and she's been nothing but supportive. She sends my kids gifts and calls them regularly. She even came to visit last month, and we had a wonderful time. She is currently looking into adoption, and I'm helping her through the process. I don't talk to the rest of the family who thought I should have just let it go anymore. They made their choice and I made mine. My daughter had nightmares for a few weeks after it happened. We took her to a therapist who specialized in childhood trauma, and she's doing much better now. She still gets nervous when she sees cars she doesn't recognize slow down near our house. We've had conversations about stranger danger and what to do if someone tries to take her again. We don't let the kids play outside unsupervised anymore, which breaks my heart because they loved that freedom. But their safety comes first. I've been going to comic conventions since I was 16 years old. My parents never really understood why I loved them so much. They'd ask why I wanted to spend money on tickets and photo ops when I could just watch the shows at home. But for me, it was about being around people who got excited about the same things I did. It was about feeling like I belonged somewhere. When I turned 19, I had saved up enough money from my part-time job at a coffee shop to afford a really special photo op. There was going to be an actor at the convention who played my favorite character from a show I'd been watching with my boyfriend for the past 2 years. We quoted lines to each other all the time. We had inside jokes about episodes. This show was something that brought us closer together, so I bought 2 tickets for the photo op, one for me and one for him. I paid for both of them with money I earned myself. It cost me almost $200 total, but it was worth it to me. I told my parents about it months in advance. I explained that this was something I wanted to do with just my boyfriend, something special for the two of us. They said they understood. My little sister was 13 at the time. She liked the same show, but not in the way I did. She thought the actor was cute, and that was about it. She didn't know the storylines. She couldn't tell you what happened in half the episodes. But when she found out I was getting a photo op with him, she decided she wanted one too. My parents told me they'd buy her a ticket. I reminded them that photo ops sell out fast and they needed to get it soon. They said they would, then they didn't. They kept putting it off, saying they'd do it later, saying they had time, until eventually the photo ops sold out completely. When my sister found out, she cried. She threw a fit. She said it wasn't fair that I got to meet him and she didn't. My parents felt bad for her. They always felt bad for her. She was the baby of the family, and they gave her whatever she wanted most of the time. 2 weeks before the convention, my mom sat me down. She told me we needed to talk about the photo op. I asked her what about it. She said my sister was really upset that she didn't get to be in it. I told her I knew that, but it wasn't my fault. They were supposed to buy her a ticket. She said they tried, but the tickets sold out. I reminded her that I had warned them that would happen. I had told them to buy it early. She admitted she knew that. Then she asked if I could just let my sister join mine. She said it was just one photo and I'd still be there with my boyfriend. I said no. I explained this was something I had planned for me and him. I had paid for it myself. My sister couldn't just take that from me. My mom called me selfish. She said it was one picture and that my sister was family. I told her that she and my dad were her parents. They should have gotten her a ticket when I told them to. She walked away upset with me. My dad tried talking to me about it a few days later, but I gave him the same answer. I wasn't budging. This wasn't about being mean to my sister. It was about having something that was mine, something I worked for and planned. The day of the convention came. My boyfriend and I arrived at the venue early. We walked around the vendor hall and looked at all the booths. We took pictures with people in cosplay. It was exactly the kind of day I've been looking forward to. About 15 minutes before our photo op was scheduled, we headed to the designated area. There were staff members organizing people into groups based on their ticket times. My boyfriend and I got in line and waited. Then I saw them. My parents and my sister were walking toward us. My sister was smiling like she'd already won. My stomach dropped. My sister said she'd been looking for us. I asked what they were doing here. My mom said they were here for the photo op. I told them no, they weren't. I had already told them my sister wasn't in my photo op. My dad told me not to be like this. He asked me to just let her be in the picture. I reminded him that I had paid for this myself. I had told them months ago this was for me and my boyfriend only. They had time to get her a ticket, and they didn't. My sister called me selfish. She asked why I couldn't just share. I told her it was because this wasn't hers to share. She didn't pay for it. She didn't plan for it. This was mine. My mom said I was acting entitled right now. She said it was embarrassing. I asked her how I was entitled. I pointed out that they were trying to force me to give up something I paid for because they didn't plan ahead. Other people in line were starting to stare. My boyfriend put his hand on my shoulder but didn't say anything. He knew this wasn't his fight to have. A staff member noticed the commotion and walked over. The staff member asked if everything was okay. My sister said I wouldn't let her be in my photo op. The staff member asked if she had a ticket for this time slot. My sister admitted she didn't but said I was her sister and I should share. The staff member explained that if she didn't have a ticket, she couldn't be in the photo op. That was the policy. My mom said this was ridiculous. She said I was being selfish over a picture. The staff member asked my mom if she had purchased a ticket for my sister. My dad said no, they had sold out. The staff member apologized but said my sister couldn't participate. He added that if they continued to disrupt the line, he would have to ask them to leave the area. My mom looked at me like I betrayed her. My sister started crying. My dad shook his head. My dad asked if I was really going to do this. I asked him if he really didn't think I meant what I said. The staff members stood there waiting. My parents and sister finally turned and walked away. I could hear my sister crying when they left. Part of me felt bad, but most of me felt relieved. The photo op went perfectly. My boyfriend and I got our picture with the actor. We both smiled. It was everything I wanted it to be. Afterward, when we were collecting our printed photos, another person from the line came up to me. They said they were sorry to hear my parents weren't respecting my wishes. I told them it was okay. I explained that my parents knew all along what my plan for the photo op was, but they spoiled my sister so much they needed to stop. They nodded and walked away. I looked at the photo in my hands. My boyfriend was looking at it too. He asked if I was okay. I said yeah, I was good, and I was. I was 17 when this happened. I was living in a shared apartment about 3 hours away from my hometown while finishing up my last year of high school. My parents thought it would be good for me to learn independence before college, so they helped me set up as in a small place near my school. Most days I managed fine on my own, but that particular afternoon everything felt like it was falling apart. I had just left the bank after spending 2 hours trying to sort out a mess. My card wallet was gone. Not just misplaced, but completely gone. I had retraced my steps from the morning, checked every pocket twice, called the coffee shop where I had breakfast, and even went back to the convenience store from the night before. Nothing. Inside that wallet were my identification cards, my student card, my bank cards, and even my health insurance card. Everything I needed to function as an adult living alone. The bank teller had been sympathetic. Without proper identification, they could not issue replacement cards right away. I would need to file a police report first, then apply for new identification cards, then come back with those to get new bank cards. The whole process could take weeks. In the meantime, I had maybe $40 in cash at home and no way to access the rest of my money. I stood outside the bank feeling like the world was closing in on me. I was supposed to pay rent in 5 days. I had groceries to buy. What if there was an emergency? I called my parents, but neither of them picked up. They were probably at work. I left a voicemail, trying not to sound as panicked as I felt, then booked a ride home through the app. The car pulled up within minutes. I climbed into the back seat and slumped against the window, staring at nothing. My mind was racing through scenarios. Could I borrow money from my roommate? Should I skip meals to stretch my cash? How long would it really take to get everything replaced? I felt tears starting to well up but forced them back down. Crying would not solve anything. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror a few times as we pulled into traffic. I avoided eye contact, hoping he would just focus on driving. I needed silence to think, to plan, to figure out how I was going to manage the next few weeks without spiraling into complete disaster. We had been driving for maybe 5 minutes when he spoke up. He told me not to worry too much and said he was sure the boy liked me back. I blinked and looked up at the mirror, confused. I asked him what he meant. He was grinning at me through the reflection, the kind of grin adults give teenagers when they think they have it all figured out. It was teasing and patronizing at the same time. He explained that he meant the boy I was thinking about right now. He said he was sure the boy liked me back, so I should not be sad. Then he told me to smile. Something inside me snapped. Here I was, drowning in genuine stress about real adult problems. And this stranger had decided that because I was a teenage girl looking upset, it must be about a boy. Not school, not family, not any of the 1,000 real problems a person could have. Just boy trouble. And his solution was to smile. The words came out before I could stop them. I told him my dad just had a heart attack and I was not sure if I could get home in time to see him alive. The grin vanished from his face instantly. His eyes went wide in the mirror, and I watched the color drain from his cheeks. His mouth opened and closed a few times like he was trying to find words, but none would come out. He stammered out an apology. He said he was so sorry and that he did not know. He said he should not have assumed anything. His hands tightened on the steering wheel, and he sat up straighter. The car picked up speed, going a bit faster than before, but still within the limit. He kept looking at me in the mirror with this horrified, guilty expression. He apologized again. He said that what he did was completely inappropriate and that he was really sorry. I just nodded and looked back out the window. Part of me felt bad for lying, but a bigger part of me felt satisfied. Maybe next time he would think twice before making assumptions about why someone was upset. Maybe he would learn that teenage girls had real problems beyond romance. Maybe he would just mind his own business. The rest of the ride passed in complete silence. He did not try to make small talk. He did not offer any more unsolicited advice. He did not tell me to smile. He just drove, occasionally stealing nervous looks at me, like he was worried I might start crying or yelling at him. When we finally pulled up to my apartment building, he practically jumped out to open my door, still looking mortified. He told me again that he was truly sorry for my situation. He said he hoped everything would work out. I thanked him quietly and got out. I walked toward my building and heard him get back in his car and sit there for a moment before driving away. I felt a tiny bit guilty, but mostly I just felt tired. Later that evening, my mom finally called me back. I told her about the lost wallet, and she calmed me down and walked me through the steps to handle it. She even offered to transfer money to my roommate's account so I could borrow cash until everything was sorted out. It would be inconvenient and frustrating, but it was not the end of the world. And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.